What's going on, guys? Omar here. And in today's video, I want to talk about macronutrients and macronutrient breakdown, depending on if you want to do just a classic bodybuilding, macronutrients, or bulking, essentially muscle gain, or cutting, which is essentially fat loss. So the classic bodybuilding macronutrient breakdown is 40% protein, 40% carbs, and 20% fats. Those are the three macronutrients: protein, carbs, and fats. And you have to get them in approximately that proportion in order for you to maximize a positive protein synthesis environment when you're working out. Okay, so the classic, again, 40% protein, 40% carbs, and 20% fats. Now, if you want to do just a super bulking phase where you're training intensely and you need to support your energy demands, what I would recommend then in that case, an alternative to the classic bodybuilding phase, is 30% protein, 50% carbs, and 20% fats. So essentially, you're going to give 50% for carbs, which for you carb lovers out there, you're going to love it, 50% carbs, and then 30% protein, which you need protein, and then 20% fats. Now, if you're going to be in a cutting phase, let's say you want to get ripped for summer, you've bulked during the holidays, you bulked during Halloween and Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's, and you just ate everything under the sun, and now you want to cut. If you want to cut, the main thing you need to remember is you need to prevent muscle breakdown from your caloric deficit. When you're cutting, yes, you will be in a caloric deficit, maybe 1900 calories, 1800 calories, 1700 calories a day. And if that's the case, then you need to be very, very careful with preserving the muscle that you've worked so hard to build. And so with the protein, you want to get around 30 to 40% protein, 40 to 50% carbs, and 20% fat. Okay, so you want to prioritize your protein. Again, 40 to 50% protein, 30 to 40% carbs, and 20% fat. So if you're going to get 50%, 50%, half of your protein intake, you need that. You need to prioritize that first. 50% protein, 30% carbs, and the rest 20% fats. Now, fats by far is the lowest of the three between proteins, carbs, and fats. And you have to be careful that when you're eating meals not to add a lot of fats because it's just so caloric dense. What do I mean by that? I mean that for every 1 gram of fat that you consume, that equals 9 calories. For every 1 gram of protein that you consume, that equates to 4 calories, and out of 1 gram of carb that you consume, that equates to also 4 calories. So 1 gram of protein, 4 calories, 1 gram of carb, 4 calories, 1 gram of fat, 9 calories, more than double the amount you would get from either proteins or carbs. So what does that mean? You have to reduce the amount of grams of intake of protein that you're taking, meaning that don't eat oily foods. Don't eat foods with a lot of oil. Don't add a lot of oil to your foods. Minimize that to the greatest extent possible, because let's say you only had 1700 calories to consume in one day. And 50% of that is going to be coming from proteins. Okay, well, 1700, divided by 2, that's like 850 calories that you need to get from proteins. So you don't have a lot left for your reserves for carbs and for fats. You need to get 850 calories all from protein. So you need to be very mindful. You want to prioritize protein first. Things like lean proteins, chicken, or protein powders, or steak, low fat steak, because like I said, you got to lower that. And you got to make sure that egg whites also. You have to think about what are some pure protein sources that I can get. Pure, as close as pure, meaning that it's almost 100% protein foods. Egg whites and chicken breast, to me. And there are some protein powders also. That helps also get your 850 calories, assuming it's on a 1700 calorie restriction. So you got to be very mindful of that when you're cutting. Also, when you're bulking or you're doing a classic bodybuilding macronutrient phase, when you're bulking, again, I said 30% protein, 50% carbs, 20% fat, and then back to the classic bodybuilding, 40, 40, 20, 40% protein, 40% carbs, 20% fat. Now, I personally have done the classic bodybuilding on a cut. So essentially, when I was cutting, I was around 1800 calories, let's say 1800 calories. I would go 40% protein, 40% carbs, and 20% fat. And for me, it worked out perfect. It worked out great. I got great results doing that. So those are the bodybuilding macros. And if you're too confused about this, just go for the classic bodybuilding. Just go 40, 40, 20. It's that simple. 40% protein, 40% carbs, 20% fat, and then just lower your daily caloric intake to like 500 below maintenance. So if your maintenance is 2,500, go 2,000. If your maintenance is 2,300, go 1,800. For me personally, it was 2,300. But I reduce it to 500, that brings it down to 1,800. So those are some guidelines, and for you to measure your macros, get a food scale. It's critical. You need to get a food scale. It's vitally important that you know how much you're intaking and that you measure your foods. It's not out of the ordinary. This is what people do. You have to. There is no other way around it. Yes, there are people that say, oh, you can just estimate how much food you're intaking. Maybe you can do that if you've been doing this for a while, but if you're brand new, which most of you guys are, you need to measure out your foods. Try that and let me know what you think. Let me know what type of results you get. If you have any questions, of course, put them in the comments below. If you like this video, please hit the like button and share this video amongst your friends and your family, or just whoever you think would find this information valuable, that's currently trying to improve their health, that hopefully is still currently on their New Year's resolution. It's about mid-February now, and you know what happens to people by February. So I will see you guys on the next one. Bye.